Hello, and welcome back to Ask Dr. B. It has been a while since I've come to you with a new video because all of us at Team Weeby have been really super busy because we launched Weeby. Yay! We're now in the App Store. You can find us at Weeby Life, or at Google Play, you can search for Weeby, Webe, just like this program is on the Weeby channel. So check out the app if you haven't. Thank you to all of you who have downloaded, who are building your pods, who are joining affinity groups. We are so excited and really honored to be working with all of you as we build a community focused on well-being. So today I am going to talk about the sixth element that we at Weeby track in terms of elements that affect our well-being. Today I'm going to talk about spirituality. So how do we think about spirituality? Spirituality involves, here's one definition, and you'll see me, moving back and forth. I wish I had all of this memorized, but I don't. And I want to make sure I talk about the pieces of this very important topic. So that's what you are seeing. When I look to the side, it's because I have a bunch of notes taped up here, and then I come back and we talk about them, or at least I talk, and hopefully you're talking as you're watching this or you're sharing it with others. All right. So here's one definition. Spirituality involves the recognition of a feeling or sense or belief that there is something greater than myself, something more to being human than our sensory experience, and that the greater whole of which we are part of is cosmic or divine in nature. That's a really great definition. So having a spiritual practice or a set of beliefs is one way that people find meaning, hope, comfort, and inner peace in their lives. Many people find spirituality through religion, but for some others, it can be through their music, their art, their work. Still others find a sense of purpose and spirituality in a sense of community, where they spend their time and their extended either family or cultural identity. There's no single definition or approach that fits for everyone. Isn't that true of so many things about us humans? There isn't one size that fits all. And in this case, there's not one definition. And our spiritual beliefs can actually change over time. They can evolve, they can grow. And finally, not everyone feels the need, the presence, or the desire for spirituality in their lives. And that's okay too. And that may change. You may not feel it at some point in life, and then that may develop over time. And that's why at Weeby, spirituality is the one element that when you go to the app and you're working through and learning about it. And oh, by the way, if you do download it, check out the FAQs. You can reach those in the upper left in the screen on your profile page. And in there, you'll see the FAQs. And if you click on that, you'll see a whole collection of little videos that help you navigate the app because there's so much in it. Okay. What was I saying? All right. Oh, yeah. As you're moving around the app and you're looking at the different elements, you will notice that spirituality is the one element that you can opt out of, meaning that you won't rate it daily. And why is that? It's because not everyone feels that need. However, you can turn that back on at any time. So just want to point that out. So we don't know exactly how spirituality affects our well-being, meaning we don't quite understand the mechanism, but we know that the body, the mind, and our spiritual beliefs are very connected. So we don't know, for example, how having positive beliefs, how they affect us in terms of helping us physically be well, but they do. We know that there's, lots of evidence that helps us now point to being positive, having a sense of community, being connected. All of this is important for our physical well-being. And we know some of the mechanisms. We know the effect of stress on our hearts, for example, and on all other aspects of our physical health. And so, we can extend that and say, well, if I'm really happy with my spiritual beliefs and I belong to a community, I will have less stress, which is that's a negative for health. So having that positive community is a positive impact on my health. So we know some things, but it is complicated. But we do know that having that sense of positive spiritual beliefs, it does provide comfort. It absolutely, we know this, that being part of a spiritual religious community uh, is actually a very strong protective factor against suicide. So we know the relationships are there. The specific mechanisms, we're still learning all about that. And I think we will for quite some time. Having positive spirituality in your life, it may not prevent illness or disease, but it can help you cope so much more effectively with those challenges, whether they're physical challenges or mental health challenges. So we know that there are lots of positive aspects. The flip side is also true. When we are in conflict about our sense of spirituality, it can affect the other elements of our well-being. So we may not sleep as well. We may emotionally be very down or struggling. It may affect our relationships, may affect our willingness, our ability, our interest in being out and about in the world. So as you know, here at Weeby, we talk a lot about how these interrelationships are so incredibly important, and which is why we ask you to rate them every day, and why we're educating about each one of them and always talking about how they are interrelated. All right. So if you do select spirituality and you're on the app, then we will be asking you, to tell us how are you doing every day. So how do you think about that? What would an example be of excellent spirituality? Well, you may not be surprised to learn that I'm going to give you a couple examples to help you with that. So here's an example of what someone who feels excellent overall about their spirituality may feel or would say. My faith is strong. I have strong spiritual practices. My spirituality is a source of strength and comfort that contributes to my overall well-being. I have no conflict regarding my beliefs or their application in my life. Very clear. That's what someone who feels excellent about their spirituality may report. Here's an example of someone who may feel that their spirituality, that they feel fair, that their experience right now is fair. They would rate it as fair. I have a clear set of spiritual beliefs and practices. I do not engage in these practices as often as I would like, and I sometimes wish I had stronger convictions. My spiritual experience does not negatively affect my well-being, but I'm not sure that it has been contributing in a positive way either. So here you can hear that it's kind of in the middle. It's not bad. It's just maybe not great, or maybe they're not doing as much as they wish they would. And here's an example of someone who feels that right now that their spiritual experience is poor. I do not have a clear spiritual belief system, and this troubles me. Or I have considerable conflict over my current system of beliefs and practices. I'm concerned that my current conflict about my spirituality or my lack of spirituality may be having a negative effect on my overall sense of well-being. So now you can hear excellent, sort of in the middle with fair or poor. So what happens, or what can one do? What can you do if you are feeling either not so great or poor about your spirituality? So again, remember, not everyone feels that spirituality is a critical element of their overall well-being. But if you do, then I hope some of these tips are helpful to you. If this is an area that you are struggling or periodically struggling, or maybe you know that there's someone that you love, someone you care about, and that they're struggling. So here we go. Here are some tips. But first, I want to say that for many of us, our sense of spirituality really sort of begins in our family. And that's where many of us learn about not only our culture, but religious beliefs and practices. But that's not true for everyone. Some people find their path as they get older. They go out and they explore, or they meet people, and that pulls them into a spiritual or religious community. And then still other people are still on that path, and they're not sure, or they're not clear about what they believe, and that's okay too. Okay, so regardless of how we come to believe or where we are, on this journey, if you're struggling, there are things that you can do that can help you. Because when you're feeling that sense of tension or discomfort or sadness in one area, and in this case, spirituality, as we've been pointing out, it does affect these other areas of well-being. So if you are, here are some tips, hopefully, that might help. First, make sure you're taking good care of yourself. It's very hard to develop or engage in practices, spiritual, religious practices, if you're not doing well in other areas of your life. So if you're not paying attention to your physical health, your relationships, your emotional experience, your sleep, your activity, very hard to have a very solid and comfortable and really intentional spiritual practice. So pay attention to how you're doing overall, and make sure you're, it's like tending a garden. You have a plant over here that needs a little water and sunshine, and one over here may need a little pruning. That's sort of how I think about my own well-being. I need to pay attention, sort of look out over everything, which is why the ratings really help me day to day. And then I need to attend to each of them depending on what's going on, each of those areas. Okay, so take care of yourself overall. Make sure that then you can give the time and attention to your spiritual beliefs and your practices. We'll talk a little bit more about that as I talk about setting aside time, because that's something we all have trouble with. Another thing that can be very helpful is to reflect. Why am I feeling whatever I'm feeling? Why am I feeling tense or disappointed or frustrated or sad? It's so much easier for all of us to develop a plan to address whatever the challenge is, whatever our pain is, whatever our struggle is, if we know what it is we are tackling, what it is that is causing us that. So make sure that you give yourself the time and the space, and maybe engage others in that process of reflection. So these feelings that you're having, for example, are they recent feelings? Or have you been struggling with your spirituality or your religious belief for a very long time? How long? And if it's recent, what prompted that? What happened? And if it's been, for a very long time, maybe getting at the root of why it's been difficult for you to then make a change. If what you've been living with isn't working for you, maybe it makes sense to explore more about that, or maybe find a different path for yourself. So, how long have you been feeling this way? If you see what is causing you to be unhappy, what's interfering with you making a change or doing something about it, understand that helps us to develop a plan. Have you made attempts in the past to address some of these concerns, and have some of those been helpful or not? It's always good to go back to, what worked for us in the past, maybe not even with this particular challenge, but maybe with a challenge like this. Can you apply it to this concern that you have, this tension that you have? Maybe as you reflect, you start thinking about how long has it been this way? What led to this will help you then identify, what might I do? Do you have a community that you can talk to about these things? Is this something that you can talk to your family about? If not your family, can you talk to friends about this? Is there a spiritual leader that might be someone that you could speak with, a religious leader, that's someone that you could go to and share your concerns and believe, someone you trust? We talk a lot at Weeby about trust and how important it is. Critically important in this domain. If you know that you are in conflict with your family about your religious or spiritual beliefs, probably not the people you want to go talk to about that, unless you're trying to sort out, where you began in your family life and where you are now. But are there people you can talk to? People who can give you support, people who can give you things to think about, guidance. And in terms of relationships, if you're struggling in some relationships, and that there's an intersection here, that some of the things that are causing you pain or distress are problems in relationships with people within your spiritual community, when you download the app, if you haven't already, check out in the Weeby Wisdom the tips around relationships, or the video that I did on relationships, and they give you some tips to help you think about how to either improve those relationships or perhaps move on from them or change the nature of them. Okay. Make sure you set aside time to actually not only address your spiritual concerns if you have them, but set aside time for your practices. You know, it's we all are busy, we all get caught up, but if it's something that matters to you, please make sure that you set aside time. Maybe that means that you literally have to schedule in whatever that might be. Identify the things that make you feel good about your spiritual self, whether that's going to services or whether that's spending time in the woods, whether that's doing private meditation, whatever those things are, make sure that you're actually building in the time to do those things. And maybe that's set aside time every day, or maybe it's set a goal of 2 to 3 times a week. You're going to engage in these activities. Journaling can be very helpful to track how that's going. And also on the app, on the Weeby app, you can make notes about why you're feeling better. When you're rating your spirituality, there's a journaling function, so you can take notes and go back and look at why you were feeling better or worse. Set goals for yourself, you know, and be forgiving. If you didn't quite meet that goal that week, that's okay. Take a step back. You can, reset. We are imperfect creatures. We are perfect in our imperfections. And so sometimes you have to try multiple times and give yourself lots of reward and credit when you're approximating your goals. So some other activities to try if you're yearning for a greater sense of spirituality. I talked about, if you belong to a community, but what if you don't belong to a community? Well, then, there are lots of great books on spirituality that you might check out and read. Listen, to lectures that are available online, free, that you can listen to and maybe get inspired. You might get involved with community organizations that have a spiritual or religious perspective to see if that fits for you. Volunteer activity, community work, it always helps me, and it often helps us get outside of ourselves and think about the bigger picture and why are we all here and what is the meaning of all of this and what good can we do while we're here. So that's, community involvement, organizations that maybe have a spiritual or religious leaning. I mentioned journaling, a great practice. If you used to engage in daily prayer, maybe you need to get back to that. Maybe you need to, again, carve out that time and get back to that and see how that feels. Try that back on. Meditating, I mentioned, listening or singing devotional, listening to or singing devotional songs, reading inspirational passages. I love reading inspiring works by whether it's somebody who's a religious leader or just, somebody who has that inspiring perspective that helps me, again, get outside of me and think about my personal journey here and my mission. Spending time in nature, if that works for you, taking quiet time for contemplation, yoga. Some forms of yoga are more spiritual than others, but they can help you get into that space where you think differently about yourself and your life. And obviously attending religious services. And if you don't have, again, a religious community, you can go to different services. I don't know a single organized religion that doesn't welcome visitors to experience what they have to offer. Find others who support your commitment, whether it's people that you are friends with, members of your family. Make a date to do things together, go to meditation together, go to religious services together, read a book together, and then talk about it and get support through the Weeby app. That's why we built it. Earn enough points, form an affinity group, invite folks to be part of that conversation that matters to you about spirituality. Create a pod that can provide support to you and you supporting other people, and talk about these challenges that we all face. These are the human challenges that we all face. Having, members that support us and that we support is so good for our well-being, and clearly important in terms of the spiritual realm. Such an important part of spirituality for most people is that sense of community with others. Okay, last thing I want to say to sort of close this chapter, if you will, about well-being, and I've said it about each one of these elements. Make sure you're paying attention to your mental health as you go through thinking about, what's affecting me with my spirituality. I mentioned earlier, take care of yourself. It's critical to pay attention to the different elements and dial into, really pay attention to in a very intentional way. It's hard to focus on your religious practices, your spirituality, if you're dealing with depression, anxiety, and if you are, please get professional help. We have many resources in the Weeby app. Check out the resource section, and there's a section that is specifically focused on therapy and counseling and what is it and how does it help. Make sure that you take the time to take good care of yourself so that you can enjoy the spiritual or religious part of yourself and your community. Finally, before I go, I want to say, see this? This is isn't it cute? This is our new Weeby Life mug. And soon you're going to see a little promotional coming out in our social media channels where you'll have a chance to win a mug and also win a chance to have images of what helps your well-being on our app. So pay attention to that. Send in your images, and good luck to you. And it's a great mug. I use it now every day, as you might imagine, since it's Weeby. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of our community. And thank you for taking care of your own well-being and the well-being of those you love. Take care.